Every child born afterwards is going to be part of this covenant of the Jewish nation. And they will receive a special soul from God, what's referred to as a godly soul. When one would observe this law, that a Jew can only marry a Jew, they may feel that that is perhaps being very prejudiced, being racist. Why wouldn't you allow your children to marry other faiths? Why can a Jew only marry a Jew? Isn't that segregating yourself from the rest of the world? Why is it so important that a Jew only marries a Jew? The answer to that is one needs to truly first understand what is a Jew. What does it mean to be a Jew? And why is it so important to only marry a Jewish spouse? When one looks back in history, when we realize what the world was like before Judaism, and then what the world was like after the birth of Judaism. When we look in the book of Genesis, when God created the world in 6 days, rested on the seventh, and then on the sixth day God created Adam and Eve, and humanity has begun. And we see what happened to the world as we go through the whole first chapter of Genesis and then into the chapter of Noah, where humanity had no direction. Humanity ran amok. There was a very fine line that was crossed over between humans and animals. There is no law and order. There's no rhyme or reason. So much so that at some point God said, it's not working out. We need to change this. We need to start over. And that is where the great flood occurred, where God preserved Noah, his wife, and his children, and every living species that existed on the world. God instructed Noah to preserve them in the ark. After 40 days and 40 nights of treacherous rains, the whole world was purged. The whole world went through a cleansing process with heavenly rains filled up earth. Everything got swallowed up during the flood. And then Noah and his wife and his children emerged out of the ark to a new world. We can call it in our language nowadays 2.0. This is the reboot. This is the reset. And God instructed Noah and his wife and the kids and said, you are now going to repopulate the world. It was then, afterwards, that Abraham, who was not born Jewish, he was born Abraham to his parents. His father Terach was an idol worshiper. The world at the time believed in worshiping idols as gods. Abraham, at a very young age, began questioning about the existence of the world. He looked up to the sky and pondered, where did the stars come from? Where did the moon, where did the sun come from? And he came to a conclusion that it couldn't have happened by itself, that there has to be a God in heaven. From a very young age, he began pondering the existence of a God in heaven. And as he went through life, he began appreciating and realizing that that is a true reality. It was at that point, when Abraham was 75 years old, that God made an appearance to him. And God told Abraham that I have been watching you, that I understand that you have faith in me. And God instructed Abraham, I want you to leave everything behind, and I'm going to send you to a new country, and I'm going to bless you. because you and I are going to become partners now. And God put Abraham through 10 different tests to see if Abraham was devout. And Abraham passed every single test. The last one was the hardest, the 10th test, when God asked Abraham to sacrifice his child Isaac. And when Abraham stood ready to do it, he was about to sacrifice his son when the angel held his hand back and said, Abraham, don't do this. This is just a test. Now God knows that you are devout, that you are committed to him. And God and Abraham became like a father and a child. And God blessed Abraham, that whoever Abraham blesses will be blessed. And Abraham began teaching the rest of the world. He put up wars against the kings of the times to prove his point, to believe in God, introduce monotheism, introduce the concept of a deity, of a God in heaven, a benevolent, kind, loving God, which was a new concept to the world at the time. It wasn't an easy journey to be able to be on one side and everyone else is on the other side. That is what the word Hebrew comes from. The Hebrew word of Ivri. Ivri means you're on one side and everyone else is on the other side. That is the birth of Judaism. He married his wife Sarah. She is the first matriarch of the Jewish people. And that has begun the journey of being Jewish. Until they descended into Egypt. They spent 200 years plus years in slavery. Then the Exodus. They went through the splitting of the sea. Then they arrived at Mount Sinai. And at that moment, there were 3 million people at the time. 3 million people, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It was at Mount Sinai that God declared how everyone here now is Jewish. It was like a mass conversion. Everyone there accepted God. And they declared, we will do whatever you say, God. And then we'll listen afterwards. And God told the Jewish people, as you read in the Bible, that I have chosen you to be my ambassadors. I have chosen you to be a light unto the nations. It's not going to be an easy task. You're going to be the smallest of all nations in the world. You're going to have to fight for your existence throughout your whole journey. But I will always be there with you. I will always be looking over your shoulder. I will always be cradling you. And here we are 3,300 years later. The Jewish people are still very alive. 15.5 million of us are still clenching to the Bible, believing in God, and realizing that our mission that has begun 3,300 years ago is still at hand. And this is why we need to keep Judaism alive. When Abraham circumcised himself at 99 years old, he entered into a covenant. And that covenant was that every child born afterwards is going to be part of this covenant of the Jewish nation. And they will receive a special soul from God, what's referred to as a godly soul. This soul is going to be in your body. And this soul is a part of God that's going to guard you and protect you. And that's going to give you the abilities to fulfill the mission that you were set out to do. That is very, very meaningful and most valuable. And it's a unique soul for the Jewish people. Unique doesn't mean better than anyone else. It just means that it has a unique mission. The Jewish people are not better than any other nation in the world, but the Jewish people were given a mission, a responsibility different than anyone else in the world. And because we are given that responsibility, we were also given this spiritual insight, the wisdom, the knowledge and understanding, so we could be able to uncover whatever needs to be uncovered and revealed for the rest of the world. And this is why a Jewish person can only marry a Jewish person, so that we can pass over the spiritual spark from mother to child, from generation to generation, and it cannot be stopped. It's one big chain. Each one of us is another ring in the chain. Another ring or rung? Yeah, another ring in the chain. Each one of us, when we marry into our faith, we are preserving the chain of custody. All this from Abraham and Sarah down to today. And it's not because we don't want to connect with the rest of the world. We do. But understanding marriage is not about infatuation. It's about your soulmate. Once there was a young man who met a non-Jewish woman in college, wanted to marry her. He penned a letter to the world Jewish leader, Rabbi Schneerson. And he said, I met this wonderful woman. She is wise, she is kind, she's gentle, she's brilliant, she's dedicated. So many beautiful values. And he asked the Rabbi permission, can I marry her? I know she's not Jewish, but I'm in love with her. And look at her, all the wonderful virtues she has, and I want to marry her. And he's asking the world Jewish leader for permission to marry out of the religion. And the Rebbe responded to her as follows and says, I recognize all the beautiful virtues that this individual has. God has truly blessed her with the wisdom and everything that you write about her. I recognize that that's beautiful. But that's not what marriage is about. Marriage is about your soulmate. You see, before we are born, our soul is one in heaven. At birth, God separates the soul into two halves, puts one for the man and the other one for the woman. The souls then spend the next couple decades finding each other. God orchestrates tremendous amount of steps so that the two shall meet and become once again. A marriage ceremony is not a union, it's a reunion. And therefore the Rebbe says, this woman may have all the virtues you're looking for, but she can't be your soulmate because she's not Jewish. Your soulmate in heaven is a Jewish soulmate. That's why Jewish people only marry Jewish people, because that is their soulmate. I've always, over my 40-year career, explained to couples that each person should marry within their own religion. There's a reason why a person was born into a certain religion, so that they should preserve their religion. But when intermarriage occurs, when a Jew marries a non-Jew, and then the children are not Jewish, if the mother is not Jewish, and that's the end of a line of 3,300 years. Do we have the right to break that chain of custody from Abraham to now? The Jewish future depends on you, and your soulmate is a Jewish soulmate. She's out there, he's out there. Find each other, and you'll be blessed to be able to have a beautiful edifice, and you have done your part in preserving Judaism, especially nowadays when we see so much anti-Semitism. It just reminds us how different we are than the rest of the world. We realize how much the rest of the world truly hates us. It's no secret. We have seen it since October 7. If that is the case, then we need to support each other. We need to marry each other and preserve our nation so it does not get assimilated and gets lost. May God bless you that you find your soulmate. And I hope I answered the question why Jews only marry Jews. It's only because we want to preserve ourselves. Remember, we're less than 0.2% of humanity. We have to do whatever we can to preserve ourselves. And one of the ways of doing it is to make sure not to assimilate and not to intermarry, but to rather find our true soulmate and build the future of Judaism. God bless you. God loves you. May God bless the brothers and sisters who are defending our homeland in Israel and bring the hostages back home soon.